Last year, I had a really dumb idea. I wanted to create a one-of-a-kind piece to show off on my desk. This series chronicles my ridiculous journey. This is the Apple Cinema Display Conversion Project. As always, let's jump right into it. We'll start with the archive footage from last year. I have my design goals, so with them in mind, I went out and procured all of the cabling that I thought would be necessary at the time. That included things like the mini DisplayPort and USB-A extensions ideally got me access to my first input method and a way to interface with the rest of the devices and functionality of the monitor. The USB 3 extensions were to mount inside of the casing. I'll be honest, I don't remember what I wanted the USB 2.0 extension for, but it came in handy in a bit. And lastly, my solution to the audio integration goal. I decided on the Tron USB audio adapter, since it provided me with a way to control the audio levels with my media control buttons in macOS, and should be Windows compatible as well. Crucially though, it also has a microphone input. In order to get easier access to the pinouts for the audio on this board, I actually tore it open. The process of tearing this thing open also actually cost me my first adapter. I tried to cut the audio jack apart with some side snips, and it actually tore the audio pad right off the circuit board. That really sucked. I ended up soldering directly to the pads, but I'll probably backpedal on this decision and use a TRRS breakout cable for the final build. Missing from the footage of the first batch of cables, I also had to get a full-size HDMI to female micro HDMI adapter and a micro HDMI to female full-size HDMI adapter. Now we'll move right over to the preliminary layout. Looking at the shapes of the Dell Electronics, putting the power supply in the old PSU compartment on the left, and the logic board on the top right where there's room with no mounting standoffs to collide with seemed optimal. It gave easy access to the AC plug on the PSU, was within length of the LCD ribbon cable, and gave a clear path for the logic board I/O to be routed down through where the original logic board was mounted. With this layout in mind, I took some measurements of the available standoffs surrounding the PSU. I threw them into Fusion 360 to create a crude mounting bracket for the Dell PSU, printed that design out on my A.C.D.C 3D, and gave it a test fit. The test design worked well enough. From there, I shifted gears a bit. I did a lot of continuity testing to see where the plugs were wired to. I moved over to the logic board and the corresponding USB daughter board. I had some initial thoughts to just connect a USB device directly to the logic board along the ribbon cable connector pins, but honestly, they were just really small and too annoying to work with. So I changed my approach. I started checking for continuity of the daughter board USB port itself. I could always just stick it inside somewhere out of the way. With that info taken, I moved over to the webcam. It had 5 cables, but the thicker black one is just an extra ground cable. After a bit of research, I found out that the webcam just uses a standard USB connection, so I just needed to figure out the pinout. In the end, I determined the following wire pinouts. Armed with this info, I wanted to test it first, so I used the USB 2 extension that I mentioned earlier first on my MacBook. See the results for yourself. After that successful test, I soldered the webcam wires directly to the daughter board pads after ripping the USB port and pins off of it. Assuming nothing went wrong, it should now be hardwired to the Dell USB hub. That pretty much finishes up all of the archive footage I have, but there were still a few things I had completed but just not gotten around to getting footage of. The power socket and determining the polarity of the speakers. The power socket's kind of a monstrosity. Since the plug is modular, I pulled it out, did some continuity testing, figured out how I needed it to wire up to the Dell PSU. What I decided to do was to slice open the Dell power cable and attach it to the internal leads of the Cinema Display power plug. This gave me the pass-through that I was looking for. Then the last mystery I solved before getting sidetracked, the speaker polarity situation. It turns out that on the Cinema Display, the speaker wire colors are the reverse of what I was expecting. Gray is actually the ground and black is the positive lead. I tested this by tapping the exposed leads onto a button cell battery to figure out which polarity made the speaker push out instead of pull in. That brings me up to today with the current rat's nest of wiring for the speakers. After snipping the connectors off of all the speakers and connecting everything together, we can give it a test. Plug it in, play some audio, The speakers are too quiet. Unfortunate. We'll come back to the speakers another time when I've got a solution to it being too quiet. Next up, I finished part of this before taking a break, but only just finished it this last week. I added custom extensions to both the inverter connector and the logic board power cable. This will give me the freedom to position the PSU and logic board far enough apart to fit in the case. With that, we're all caught up with my current progress with the build, so let's take a look at my design goals and see how many we've hit. Not too bad. There's still a lot of work to be done to get everything finished up, and a few more problems I need solutions to, but it's all coming along nicely. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, drop me a like or a comment down below with your thoughts or suggestions. In the next part, we'll cover the USB hub, cable routing, and discuss the other challenges left to solve. Hope you enjoyed. Toodles.